The night was quiet, and the moon hung low, like it didn't want to see what the world had become. Lorian stood before the grave he had built with his own hands. A small stone bed at the edge of the forest. He placed the rose gently on the cold stone. It was the same kind of flower she loved, white, soft, and full of scent. When she was alive, she would tuck them behind her ear, laughing softly as the petals brushed her cheek. But now, her laughter was only in his memory. Lorian knelt down beside the grave. The earth beneath him was damp, cold, and heavy with silence. He closed his eyes and whispered, "I kept my promise, Elena. I never left you, even when the world forgot your name." The wind stirred his long silver hair. It carried the faint scent of rain and the sharpness of pine. For years, he had lived far from people. The villagers feared him, calling him the ghost of the mountain. But he didn't care. Fear was safer than love. Love was what had destroyed him once. He remembered the night she died, the sound of her weak breath, the way her eyes searched his face, even as her body grew cold. He could have saved her. He had the power. One bite, one drop of his immortal blood, and she would have lived forever. But she had begged him not to. "Let me stay human, Lorian. Please. Let me go when it's time." He had kept that promise, and that promise had become his curse. Every night he returned to the grave and spoke to her as if she could still hear him. Some nights he thought he felt her near. A whisper behind him, a touch on his shoulder. But when he turned, the forest was empty. Until tonight, when he arrived, something felt wrong. The air was too still. Even the owls had gone quiet. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Lorian's sharp senses caught a strange scent, earth, freshly turned. He looked down. The soil around the grave had been disturbed. A chill ran through him. He brushed the dirt away with his hands faster and faster until his fingers hit something. Wood. The coffin. But it was open. The lid lay broken to the side, the inside empty. For a moment, Lorian didn't move. His mind couldn't believe what his eyes saw. His heart, long thought dead, began to beat again, slow and heavy. "No," he whispered. "No. No, this cannot be." He dropped to his knees, searching the ground for any sign, footprints, marks, anything. The grave had been opened from within. The wood had splintered outward. She hadn't been taken. She had left. Lorian's breath came faster, his vision blurred with confusion. He looked again inside the coffin, and there, resting where her hands should have been, lay a folded piece of paper. It was dry, untouched by the rain. His hands trembled as he opened it. The ink was dark red, as if written with something other than ink. The handwriting was hers. Delicate, curved, familiar. The message was short. "Don't look for me. I'm not yours anymore." For a long moment, there was no sound. Not even the wind dared move. Lorian's eyes scanned the words again and again, as if more meaning would appear the longer he stared. His mind flooded with memories, her smile, her soft hands, her voice whispering his name in the candlelight. And now, this. He fell back against the grave, his chest tightening with something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not of death, not of pain, but of truth. If the letter was real, if she had written it, then she was alive, and she didn't want him. He stayed there until the first light of dawn touched the trees. When the sunlight hit his pale skin, it burned slightly, but he didn't move. He just stared at the empty grave. Then, slowly, he stood up. His eyes, once calm and distant, now burned with something new. Determination. He folded the letter and tucked it into his coat. "You can run from me, Elena," he whispered, voice steady but broken, "but I will find you. Even if it takes another 100 years." He turned toward the forest. Behind him, the grave stood open, and the white rose he had brought was gone. Only a few petals scattered in the dirt remained. That night, the villagers below saw a shadow moving across the mountain ridge, tall, fast, and silent as smoke. The ghost of the mountain had awakened, and he was no longer mourning. He was hunting. For many years the village below the mountain had feared the castle. They said a pale man lived there, one who never aged, who walked only when the moon was high. Children were told never to wander too close, or the ghost would take them. That ghost was Lorian. He hadn't been seen for nearly 50 years, until now. The sun had barely set when a hooded figure stepped into the old inn at the edge of the village. His clothes were dark, simple, covered in dust. The air seemed to grow colder when he entered. The chatter stopped, mugs froze midair, and every eye turned to him. Lorian pulled back his hood. His silver hair caught the firelight, and his eyes, deep and gray, scanned the room slowly. His face looked too calm for a man, too perfect for someone mortal. He didn't speak at first. "I'm looking for someone," he finally said. His voice was soft, almost gentle, yet it made everyone listen. "A woman! Her name is Elena." The innkeeper shifted uneasily. "Many women have that name, sir." Lorian's gaze didn't move. "This one has eyes the color of winter rain." A voice soft as the wind through leaves. "If you've seen her, you'd remember." The room fell quiet again. Then a girl sitting near the fire whispered, "I saw her." Everyone turned. The girl couldn't have been more than 16, dressed in plain linen. Her name was Seren. She worked at the inn, cleaning tables and tending the fire. Lorian turned toward her, eyes sharp but calm. "Tell me," he said, stepping closer. "Where?" Seren hesitated, glancing at the others. "At the old chapel by the river." 3 nights ago, I was bringing wood for Father Ben. I saw a woman standing there. She looked lost. Her skin was pale, but her eyes... She stopped, remembering. "Her eyes were strange," Seren whispered, "like they'd seen too much. She wore a dark dress and had no shoes. When I called out, she looked at me. Then she was gone. I swear, she vanished." Lorian's hands clenched at his sides. He could hear her heartbeat quicken. She wasn't lying. "The old chapel," he repeated. "Where is it?" The innkeeper raised a hand nervously. "It's across the forest." "But you shouldn't go there at night. That place has been cursed since the plague. Even the priest left years ago." Lorian gave a faint smile. "Curses don't frighten me." He dropped a silver coin on the table, old, heavy, with strange markings no one had seen before, and walked out. The forest between the village and the chapel was thick with fog. Owls watched from the trees as Lorian moved silently through the mist. His footsteps made no sound. He could hear everything. The distant rustle of animals, the drip of dew from the leaves, even the soft pulse of his own blood. But there was something else, too. A faint scent he couldn't mistake. Elena. It was like roses and smoke, just as he remembered. He followed it until the trees opened into a clearing. There stood the old chapel, half broken, covered in vines. The roof had fallen in places, and the bell above hung cracked and silent. The door creaked open at his touch. Inside, the air smelled of dust and time. Moonlight spilled through the broken windows, falling across the stone floor. Old pews stood in rows, their wood eaten by decay, but in the center, where the altar once stood, lay something new, a white ribbon, clean, untouched, tied neatly around a single red rose. Lorian froze. That ribbon, he knew it. He had tied it in Elena's hair the day they wed. His hands trembled slightly as he picked it up. The flower was fresh. Someone had been here recently. He turned his head. "Elena," he called softly. His voice echoed through the empty chapel. "If you can hear me, I am here." Only silence answered. He closed his eyes and focused. He could sense movement, faint outside the walls, a shadow slipping through the trees. He turned quickly, moving to the doorway. His eyes scanned the fog. There, a figure in the distance, walking away. Long dark hair, bare feet, a torn black dress. "Elena!" he shouted, his voice breaking the still air. The figure stopped. For a moment she stood still, as if deciding whether to turn or not. Then slowly, her head turned halfway, just enough for him to see the pale curve of her face in the moonlight. It was her. His heart froze. But before he could move, she vanished into the mist, like a shadow swallowed by the night. Lorian ran after her, but the fog grew thicker. It was alive, curling around him, hiding everything. He could barely see a few feet ahead. Then he heard it, a whisper, soft, fragile, almost tender. "Don't follow me, Lorian." He stopped. The voice was hers, no doubt, no trick. "Elena," he called again, turning in every direction. "Why? Why run from me?" No answer, only the wind replying through the trees. Then the voice came again, quieter this time, close enough to make him turn sharply. "You should have let me rest." And then silence. Lorian's breath came fast. His mind raced. If she was truly alive, something had brought her back, something stronger than death itself. He stood there for a long time, listening to the stillness. Then he looked at the ribbon again. It was damp now, stained slightly at the edges, not with dirt, but with blood, her blood. He returned to the village before dawn. The inn was almost empty when he entered again. Seren was cleaning near the door, startled when she saw him. "You found her?" she asked softly. Lorian didn't answer right away. He looked at the small window where the first pale light was rising. "I found her shadow," he said finally. "But she doesn't want to be found." Seren hesitated. Maybe she's afraid. Lorian looked at her, eyes distant but calm. "No, she's hiding something she doesn't want me to see." He placed the blood-stained ribbon on the table. "She left this." Seren stared at it, frowning. "That looks new, but that chapel has been abandoned for years. No one goes there." "Someone does," he said quietly. "Someone who knows how to wake the dead." Outside, the wind began to rise again, carrying whispers through the trees. The letter in Lorian's coat seemed to burn against his chest, as if the words themselves were alive. "Don't look for me. I'm not yours anymore." But it was too late. He had already started looking, and soon he would learn the truth. That some graves don't open by mistake. The next evening, rain fell over the valley, soft at first, then heavy, turning the roads into rivers of mud. Lorian stood near the inn's window, watching the storm. The candle beside him flickered with each rumble of thunder. He hadn't spoken since sunrise. He didn't need to. He was listening, every drop of rain, every breath of wind. He searched for her voice in them, but all he heard was silence. Seren came closer, holding a blanket. "You haven't rested?" she said softly. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "I do not sleep much." She looked down at his hands, cold, pale, and still. "You're not like us, are you?" Lorian smiled faintly. "Not anymore." She hesitated, then said, "There's someone who might know what happened to your wife." Lorian looked up quickly. "Who?" "There's an old woman who lives near the marshes," Seren whispered. "People say she speaks with the dead. The villagers call her a witch. She comes here sometimes for bread and herbs, but no one goes near her home. They say if you look into her eyes, she'll see your soul." Lorian's voice was calm. "And where can I find her?" Serene's hands tightened around the blanket. "You shouldn't go. The last man who did never came back. I've already died once. Lorian said quietly. "Death and I are no strangers." He turned, pulling his cloak around him, and stepped out into the storm. The road to the marsh was long and cold. The rain never stopped, and mist rose from the ground, curling around the trees like pale hands. After hours of walking, he saw a faint orange light in the distance. A small cabin, half sunk into the wet earth. Smoke rose from its chimney, thick and dark. He approached the door and knocked once. No answer. He waited, then pushed it open. Inside, the smell of herbs and smoke filled the air. Dried flowers hung from the ceiling, and glass jars covered the shelves. Some filled with strange liquids, others with things he didn't want to name. A fire burned in the hearth, and beside it sat a woman. Her hair was white as bone, her skin thin and wrinkled, but her eyes were sharp, alive, and much too knowing. "You shouldn't be here, child of the night," she said, without looking up. Her voice was rough but steady. Lorian stepped closer. "You know what I am." The old woman smiled faintly. "I know what walks when men sleep. I've seen your kind before." He said nothing. She turned her face toward him, studying him in the firelight. "You came because of a grave? Because the dead refused to stay dead?" Lorian's heart tightened. "You know about her." The woman nodded slowly. "A woman who once belonged to you. She came to me many years ago, before she died." He stepped closer, his voice sharp now. "Why?" "What did she want?" The witch leaned back in her chair. "She feared you, vampire. Not your anger, your love. She said it was too strong, too endless, that one day it would consume her." Lorian's eyes darkened. "She didn't understand. I would have given her eternity." The witch looked into the flames. That was what she feared most. Eternity? So she begged me for another way. He frowned. "Another way?" The woman nodded. "She wanted to escape even death's chain. To rest where no shadow could reach her. I gave her a charm, an old curse, really. It would let her soul sleep in peace. But it came with a warning. What warning? That if she ever called your name again, the curse would break." Lorian's breath caught. "So she woke herself?" The witch shook her head. "No, someone called her name first." He stared at her, confused. "Who?" The old woman smiled, but it wasn't kind. "That, vampire, is what you must discover. But beware, she is not the woman you buried. What stands in her place is something between life and death. It remembers love, but it also remembers pain. If you go to her now, she may not know you." Lorian's voice was low. "Then I will make her remember." The witch looked at him for a long time, then said, "Love brought her back, but love may destroy her again." She reached into a wooden box beside her chair and pulled out a small vial of black liquid. "Take this," she said. "When the time comes, pour it where her shadow stands. If she is truly lost, this will free her soul." He took the vial carefully. "What will happen to her?" The woman's eyes softened for a moment. "She will sleep again." "Forever." This time Lorian nodded, though the thought made his chest ache. "Thank you." As he turned to leave, the witch said quietly, "One more thing, vampire. The one who called her back still watches her. And you?" He paused, looking back. "Who is it?" The witch only smiled and whispered, "A man who was once your friend." The storm had calmed by the time Lorian left the marsh. The path was quiet, and the moon shone weakly through the clouds. He walked for hours, thinking about her, about the deal she made, about the warning. Every step felt heavier than the last. When he reached the edge of the forest, he stopped. Someone was standing there. A man in a dark cloak, waiting under the trees. Lorian called out, "You've been following me since the village. Show yourself." The man stepped forward, his face half hidden by the hood. "Still sharp as ever," he said softly, "even after a century." Lorian frowned. That voice. He knew it. "Cale," he said slowly, "I thought you were dead." Cale smiled faintly. "I was. Until she called me." The air grew cold again. "She?" Lorian asked, though he already knew the answer. Cale's eyes gleamed in the moonlight. "Elena." For a long moment, neither spoke. The forest seemed to vanish around them. Only silence, moonlight, and memory remained. Lorian's voice broke the stillness. "What have you done, Cale?" Cale smiled sadly. "What you never could. I gave her freedom. I gave her a second life." Lorian's eyes hardened. "You stole her peace." Cale stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Peace? Is that what you call lying in the dirt for 100 years? You kept her chained to a promise she never wanted." Lorian's jaw tightened. "She was my wife." Cale's voice dropped low. "And she was the woman I loved before you ever met her." The words hit Lorian like a blade. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. The rain began again, light but cold, running down his face like tears he couldn't shed. Cale looked at him one last time. "You should have let her rest, old friend. Now she's neither living nor dead, and soon she'll forget you entirely." Then he turned and vanished into the mist. Lorian stood there for a long time, silent, the vial clutched in his hand. The witch's words echoed in his mind. Love brought her back, but love may destroy her again. He looked toward the dark forest where Cale had disappeared and whispered to the night, "If she has forgotten me, then I'll make her remember." The rain fell harder. The road ahead led deeper into the shadows, and to her. The next night, the moon was full again. It hung low over the forest, casting silver light across the wet ground. Lorian followed the narrow trail Cale had taken. The air smelled of pine and ash, and somewhere far off, wolves howled, though even they kept their distance when they caught his scent. He walked for hours until he reached a lake. The surface was smooth and dark, like a mirror made of shadow. Across the water, at the edge of the trees, stood a small stone cottage with candlelight glowing in the window. He knew before he saw her that she was there. Every part of him, his heart, his blood, his very soul, told him so. He crossed the lake's edge, his boots sinking into the soft earth, and stepped closer until he could see through the small window. Inside, a woman sat beside the fire. Her hair was long and black, her back straight, her hands resting on her lap. The light touched her skin, pale, smooth, untouched by time. It was Elena. But there was something wrong. Her eyes were open, staring into the fire, but they held no warmth, no light of recognition, only emptiness. Lorian stood there for a long time, unable to move. He had dreamed of this moment for 100 years, and now that it was real, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like punishment. He stepped forward and pushed the door open. It creaked softly. Elena turned her head slowly. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The fire, the air, even the sound of the night. "Elena," he whispered. Her lips parted slightly, as if the name felt strange to her. She looked at him with calm eyes. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, the same as he remembered, but there was no emotion in it. "You remember me," he said, stepping closer. She shook her head. "No, but I remember your face. I've seen it in dreams. Nightmares, maybe." The words cut deep, but Lorian kept his voice gentle. "I've searched for you for so long. I found your grave empty. I found your letter." Her gaze dropped to the floor. "The letter was not meant for you to read." "Then who was it for?" She looked up, and for the first time something flickered in her eyes. pain. For myself, she said, to remind me not to return. Lorian took another step closer. You were buried. I saw you. I held your hand as you... He couldn't finish. Tell me what happened. How are you alive? Elena's fingers tightened on her dress. You wouldn't understand. Then help me, he said, voice low but pleading. Help me understand. She stood slowly, her movements graceful but strange. Too calm, too controlled. When I died, she said softly, I thought it was over. But even in death, I heard your voice. You kept calling me Lorian. Every night, your love reached me. It wouldn't let me rest. Do you know what it feels like to wake inside your own coffin? Lorian froze. Her voice broke for the first time. To hear the earth above you, to feel your heart beating again, not because you want to live, but because someone else won't let you die? He took a slow breath. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. Her eyes burned now, faintly red beneath the candlelight. You couldn't let me go. You chained me to this world with your love. The words struck him like blades. He stepped closer, reaching out to her. I only wanted you back. She moved away. You wanted control. Even in death, I could not be free. He stopped, lowering his hand. Elena. I'm sorry. She turned away, facing the fire again. You're not the only one who searched for me, she said after a moment. Kyle found me first. Lorian's voice dropped cold. He told me. He showed me what I had become. Half of me is still human, but the other half... She paused, her voice trembling. The other half is something else, something that lives between life and death. He said I could stay this way forever, as long as I never looked back. Lorian's voice softened. But you did look back. She smiled sadly. Yes. Because of you, the firelight flickered across her face. She looked almost like the woman he had loved. Almost. He stepped closer again, slow and careful, like approaching a frightened bird. Elena, he whispered, let me fix this. Whatever curse you carry, I'll end it. I swear to you. She looked up at him, her eyes softer now. And then what? You'll turn me into one of you, so I can live in darkness forever? Lorian shook his head. No, I would never take your soul. Then what do you want, Lorian? She asked quietly. He looked at her for a long moment, his voice barely a whisper. I just want you to remember me. Something in her expression changed, a faint tremor, a flicker of old memory. Her eyes softened, her lips parted slightly. I remember. A garden, she whispered, white roses. Your hands were cold, but your eyes were warm, you told me. Love was stronger than death. Lorian's throat tightened. Yes, he said. You said you didn't believe me. She closed her eyes. I didn't. Not until now. For a moment they stood in silence, the fire crackling softly between them. Then her voice turned low. Cale told me you'd come. He said if I saw you again, the curse would start to break, that I'd begin to remember, and to feel everything I felt when I died. Lorian frowned. Feel what? She met his gaze, and her voice dropped to a whisper. Pain. Her body shuddered. She grabbed the edge of the table, gasping as her knees weakened. Lorian rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. Elena? Her hands clutched his shirt, her voice shaking. It's happening. He told me this would happen if I saw you again. My heart, it's burning. Lorian held her tightly. I won't let it take you. Stay with me. She looked up at him, eyes wide, filled with tears. Why couldn't you just let me rest? He didn't answer. His arms tightened around her as she trembled against him. The light in the room began to flicker. The fire burned brighter, shadows stretching across the walls. A sound filled the air. soft at first, then louder, like whispering voices coming from nowhere. Lorian looked around sharply. "What is that?" Elena's voice was weak. "The curse! It's waking! It's feeding on my memories." He lifted her gently and laid her on the bed. "Tell me how to stop it." She shook her head. "You can't?" "Only the one who gave it to me can end it." "The witch?" "Yes, but she warned me. If the curse breaks, my soul goes too." Lorian looked down at her, his voice breaking. "I don't care. I'll save you." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "You'll lose me again." "I already lost you once," he said softly. "I won't let it happen twice." Her hand found his and held it tightly. "Then promise me one thing," she whispered. "If you see the curse take me, don't follow." Lorian's eyes glistened. "I can't promise that." "You must," she said, her voice fading. "If you follow, you'll never come back." Her hand fell limp. The fire dimmed, leaving the room in half darkness. Lorian touched her cheek, cold again, almost lifeless. He felt something deep inside him shatter. He looked at the vial the witch had given him. The black liquid inside swirled like smoke. He knew what it could do. He knew it could free her. But freeing her meant losing her forever. He set it aside and whispered, "Not yet." Outside, the forest grew quiet again, but something new had begun. The shadows around the cottage moved on their own, stretching longer, darker, alive. From somewhere deep in the woods, a man's voice echoed faintly through the mist. "You can't save her, Lorian." It was Cale, and this time he didn't sound like a friend. The night deepened. Mist crawled across the ground like pale fingers, coiling around the trees. Inside the small stone cottage, Lorian sat beside Elena's still body. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold as marble. He had seen death 1,000 times, but never like this. It felt as though death itself was waiting in the corner, patient, almost merciful. Lorian brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, "You once told me love could outlive anything." He looked down at her pale hand in his. "I never thought that would be the curse." A faint creak came from the door. Lorian didn't turn. He already knew who it was. Cale stepped into the room, the firelight glinting off his dark armor. His face was calm, almost sorrowful. "You found her," Cale said quietly. Lorian looked up, his eyes burning. "You knew she was here." "Yes. You told me she was alive." "I told you the truth," Cale replied. "I didn't tell you the cost." Lorian stood slowly. "You lied to me." Cale's gaze didn't waver. "If I had told you what she had become, you would have hunted her. You would have destroyed her, thinking you were saving her." "I would never." Cale's voice rose, cold and sharp. "You already did once." The words hit harder than steel. Lorian froze. "What are you saying?" Kyle took a step closer, his shadow stretching long across the floor. "When she died, it wasn't by nature. It wasn't sickness. It wasn't fate. It was your doing." Lorian shook his head. "That's not true. She fell ill. The healer said what you needed to hear." Cale's voice lowered. "Do you remember the night before she died?" "The argument?" Lorian's mind burned with fragments of memory. A storm, a candle falling, Elena's tears, his own voice shouting words he could no longer recall. He closed his eyes. "No." Cale's tone softened. "You lost control. Your hunger was too strong that night. You didn't mean to take her life, but you did." The room went silent except for the fire's crackle. Lorian stepped back, his face pale. "No. I would have remembered." "You remembered grief," Kyle said, "not guilt. You buried her so you wouldn't see what you had done." Lorian's hands trembled. "I swore to protect her." "I would have never hurt her." Cal sighed. "Love and hunger don't live peacefully in the same heart, Lorian. You should know that by now. Lorian turned toward Elena, lying so still on the bed. His voice was barely a whisper. If that's true, why did she come back? Cale looked at her too, his expression unreadable. Because the curse feeds on what's left between you. Guilt, love, regret. It's all the same to it. He walked closer to the fire and stared into it. When the witch found her, she wasn't truly dead. Her heart was empty, but it still beat once every hour. She bound Elena's soul to that rhythm, one heartbeat for every hour you mourned her. You kept her alive without knowing Lorian's voice broke. So all this time she suffered because of me? Cale nodded. Every tear you shed kept her tethered here. Every visit to her grave gave her pain instead of peace. Lorian turned away, his breath shaking. Then tell me how to end it. Cale hesitated. Are you sure you want to? I have to, Lorian said. If she's trapped because of me, I'll set her free, even if it kills me. Cale studied him for a moment, then reached into his cloak and pulled out a small black stone. It pulsed faintly, like it was alive. The witch gave me this, Cale said. It's her heartstone, a piece of her power. To break the curse, you must return the life you took. You must give her your blood again, freely, not as a vampire, but as the man you were before. Lorian frowned. That man is gone. Then so is her salvation, Cale said quietly. Elena stirred. Both men turned. Her eyes opened slowly, cloudy but alive. Lorian. He rushed to her side. I'm here. She blinked weakly, her gaze drifting between them. You're both here. Just like before, Cale knelt beside her. Elena, do you remember what happened the night you died? Her voice trembled. I remember pain. And his face. I remember his hands, cold and shaking. He kept saying he was sorry. Lorian's chest tightened. Elena, please. She looked at him, and tears rolled down her cheeks. You didn't mean to do it. I know that now. Cale looked away. The curse is growing weaker, he murmured. The truth breaks its hold. Elena's fingers reached for Lorian's hand. It's not your fault. I asked you not to turn me, remember? You wanted to save me, but I refused. That's when the hunger took control. Lorian bowed his head, his voice cracking. I couldn't stop it. I know, she whispered, and still, I came back. Maybe because I never stopped loving you. For a moment, the world felt still again, fragile, beautiful. Then the fire dimmed. The wind outside roared. Cale stood, eyes wide. It's starting? What is? Lorian asked. The curse is rejecting the truth. It was built on lies. Now it's unraveling. The air in the cottage grew heavy. The walls shook. From beneath the bed, dark smoke began to pour out, twisting, writhing, forming into shapes. Elena gasped. It's the witch's shadow? Cale drew his blade, the edge glowing faintly. She's coming to reclaim the soul she owns. Lorian moved in front of Elena. She'll have to go through me. The room exploded in black flame. Through the smoke stepped a tall figure in a long cloak. The witch. Her face was hidden by a veil of shadow, her voice like wind through broken glass. You broke the seal, she hissed. You dared to wake what should have slept. Lorian's eyes burned red. You cursed her. You trapped her between life and death. I gave her what you begged for, the witch replied coldly. You wanted her alive. I gave you that gift, a heart that beats for you, and only you. Lorian's fangs flashed. Then I want it undone. The witch tilted her head. To undo it, you must return what was taken. One life for another, he understood instantly. My life. The witch nodded slowly. Yes, your blood will end the curse, and her soul will find rest, but you will vanish from this world. Forever. Elena sat up weakly, shaking her head. No, I won't let you. Lorian turned to her. You said it yourself. I didn't let you rest. Now I have to. She grabbed his hand, desperate. Please, Lorian. Don't. I don't want peace if it means losing you again. He smiled sadly. You've already lost me once, Elena. Let this be the last time. Cal stepped forward. Lorian, think about what you're doing. If you die, her soul may still wander. The witch could twist your sacrifice. Lorian looked at him steadily. Then make sure she doesn't. He drew a dagger from his belt, the same blade he'd used to cut his palm when he sealed their vows 100 years ago. He pressed the edge against his wrist. Elena screamed, Lorian, no! He looked into her eyes. I love you. Always. As his blood touched her lips, light filled the room. Bright, blinding, pure. The witch screamed, a sound that cracked the air itself. The black smoke burned away, and the walls of the cottage shook violently. Kyle shielded his face from the light, shouting something, but Lorian couldn't hear him. All he saw was Elena, glowing, breathing, alive. And then everything went still. When the light faded, the witch was gone. Cale stood alone beside the bed. Elena was sleeping peacefully, her skin warm again, her heartbeat steady. But Lorian was nowhere. The dagger lay beside her, clean, no trace of blood. Cale bowed his head. For the first time in centuries, he whispered a prayer. May your love finally rest. When Elena woke at dawn, the fire was out. The room was quiet. She looked around, expecting to see Lorian. But only silence greeted her. Then she saw something glimmer on the windowsill, a single white rose. She picked it up, her hands trembling. On one of its petals, written in faint silver words, were the same words she once wrote to him. Don't look for me. I'm not yours anymore. But this time she smiled, because she understood. The forest was quiet again. No wind, no whispers, only the soft hum of the morning light. Elena stepped outside the small stone cottage, barefoot, the earth cold beneath her feet. The mist had thinned, and sunlight crept carefully through the trees, touching her face. It had been so long since she'd felt it. Real light, not the pale shimmer of moonfire or curse-born glow. She looked toward the lake. The surface was still, clear enough to see her reflection. For the first time in a century, her eyes looked human again. No red, no shadow, just her. But behind that reflection, she thought she saw something move. A faint figure standing at the edge of the water, watching her. Her heart skipped once, painfully. Lorian, she whispered. The reflection didn't answer, but the shape stayed, still as stone. A tear slid down her cheek, and she smiled softly. Cale approached from behind, his armor quiet, his sword sheathed. You saw him, didn't you? She didn't turn. I don't know. Maybe it's just the wind playing tricks on me. Kyle stepped beside her, looking across the water. I doubt it. Some souls linger for a while before they fade. Elena's fingers brushed the white rose she still held. Then he's still here. Kyle nodded slowly. For now. They stood in silence for a moment. The sun climbed higher, and birds began to sing again. Small, fragile sounds that felt strange after so much death. I should thank you, Elena said softly. If you hadn't told him the truth, he might have never broken the curse. Cale's voice was calm. He broke more than that. He broke his own chains, too. Elena looked up at him. Was he right to do it? Cale hesitated. I don't know. Love and sacrifice always look the same at the end. Later that day, they buried the dagger near the lake, beside a fresh mound of earth. No coffin, no stone, just wildflowers and quiet prayers. Elena knelt, pressing her palm into the soil. He built my grave once, she whispered. It's only fair I build his. Cale stood behind her, silent. When she was done, she placed the white rose atop the mound. He'll hate this, she said softly. He never liked flowers. Kyle smiled faintly. Then it's perfect. Days turned into weeks. The forest began to heal. The birds returned. The grass grew thicker, and the dark fog that had haunted the place for so long slowly faded. Elena stayed in the cottage, though she rarely slept. Sometimes, at night, she would light a candle and sit by the window, waiting. She never saw Lorian clearly again. But sometimes, when the moon rose red over the trees, she would feel a hand brush her shoulder, gentle, cold, and familiar. And sometimes, when she whispered his name, she would hear her own voice answered softly in the dark. I'm here. Those were the nights she cried the most, not from sadness, but from love that still breathed, somewhere between worlds. Kel visited her often. He never stayed long. He would bring her food, stories, and news from beyond the forest. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he asked her, "What will you do now?" She smiled faintly. "Live." For both of us, Cale nodded. "Then your curse is truly gone." Elena looked at the horizon, where the sky was turning red. No curse lasts forever. Not even love, Kel tilted his head. "You think love is a curse?" She laughed softly. "It depends who you ask." That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder echoed through the valley, and rain poured like glass shattering from the sky. Elena stood by the doorway, watching the lightning flash across the lake, and for a moment, just one, she saw him again. Lorian stood on the other side, dressed in black, his hair wet, his eyes bright as they once were. He didn't move, didn't speak, but she felt him. Her heart pounded hard, alive, strong, human. She took a step forward into the rain, tears mixing with the drops on her face. "Lorian." He smiled, that same quiet, knowing smile, and slowly raised his hand, as if to touch her through the distance. She raised hers too. The storm roared, lightning blazed, and then he was gone. After that night, Elena never saw his shape again, but the lake always shimmered red under the moonlight, no matter the season. People from distant towns sometimes came to the forest and spoke of a woman who lived by the cursed water, a woman who smiled like she knew the secrets of the dead. They said, sometimes when the moon was full, she could be seen standing by the water, whispering softly into the wind. And if you listened close enough, you might hear a man's voice whisper back. Years passed. The cottage grew old, covered in ivy. The grave by the lake was hidden beneath flowers. And one morning, when the forest was still, Cale returned. He walked the same path he once took to find Lorian, only now there was no mist, no fear, just peace. He found the cottage door open. Inside, a single candle burned beside the window. Elena sat there, her head resting on her arm, her eyes closed, a faint smile on her lips. The white rose lay in her lap, perfectly preserved, as if time had never touched it. Cale stepped closer and whispered, "You found him again, didn't you?" He closed her eyes gently and placed the rose beside her heart. Outside, the moon rose red once more, not angry, not cursed, but calm. Its reflection spread across the lake like a path of light, and there, just beyond the water's edge, two shadows stood together, one tall, one slender. They didn't move. They didn't need to, for at last, their love had found its rest. They said the blood moon would return once every 100 years, and when it did, the souls that loved too deeply would wake again, not to haunt, but to remember. Some say if you visit the lake on that night, you'll see a man and a woman standing side by side beneath the red sky, hands entwined, whispering promises no death could silence. And if you listen closely, you might hear her say, "Don't look for me." And his voice will answer, "I already found you." They say the forest never truly sleeps. Even when the wind is still and the birds are quiet, something moves beneath the roots, something ancient, waiting. And when the blood moon rises, painting the world in silver and red, the forest remembers. It remembers love and loss, and every whisper ever carried on the wind. The people in the nearby village tell stories to their children, stories of a man who loved too deeply and a woman who died too soon. They say his name was Lorian, and hers was Elena. Lorian was not born a monster. He became one for love. A young warrior once, proud and noble, he turned to darkness to save the woman he couldn't bear to lose. But in saving her, he lost her all the same. When she died, the heavens wept. And when she rose again, the earth trembled. Some say the witch who bound her soul cursed them both. Others say the curse was love itself, the kind that clings so tightly it forgets how to let go. Long after their time, travelers passing through the forest began to feel it, a chill, soft and sad, like a breath against the skin. Some claimed they saw her walking along the lake, barefoot, her white dress trailing through the water, a rose in her hand, and behind her, always just beyond the light, a shadow followed. He never spoke, he never left her side. The villagers learned to stay away on nights when the moon turned red. They said that was when their hearts beat again, in the space between this world and the next. No one knows how long she stayed there. Some say she grew old. Others say she simply vanished one morning, leaving behind only the faint scent of roses and the sound of her laughter, carried on the wind. But the lake still remembers. Every 100 years, the water glows crimson under the blood moon, and two figures can be seen standing hand in hand at its edge. He looks at her like the first time he saw her. She looks at him like she never left. And for a moment, the world forgets what death means. The villagers whisper still, the curse was never evil. It was just love, too strong for the grave to hold. They say if you ever find yourself lost in that forest at night, and you see the red moon reflected in the water, close your eyes and listen. You might hear them. Two voices, soft as the wind, promising each other eternity. Elena's voice, "Do you forgive me?" Lorian's voice, "There was never anything to forgive." Elena, "Then why did you stay?" Lorian, "Because even when you were gone, you were home." And when dawn comes, the lake grows still again. The rose that once floated on its surface sinks slowly beneath the water, resting at the bottom where no light reaches. But every time the moon bleeds red, it rises again, untouched, unbroken, just like their love. So the legend remains, a grave once empty, a letter that said, "Don't look for me," and a man who did, even after death. For love doesn't end where life does. It waits, quiet and patient, beneath the blood moon, and every 100 years it wakes.